Welcome to Midlife Unlimited, the podcast for women who want more. I'm your host, Kate Porter, the Midlife Metamorphosis Coach, and I'm delighted to be joined by my guest today, Emma Hine, business growth strategist, podcast host. We'll be hearing all about that later because Emma's joining me for this very special episode, which is part of Podcasthon. What's that? We'll tell you in a minute. And our audio episode is out now, available wherever you get your podcast. But we're going to give you a taste of what we speak about because it's all about shining a spotlight on a charity that's very close to Emma and her family's heart, Windmills. So welcome, Emma. It is wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I'm impressed that you could actually say Podcastathon.
Oh, it is a little, but for people that don't know, this is the second year that Midlife Unlimited has taken part, but it's podcasting for good. It's a non-profit event. It runs all this week, March 14th to 20th, anyone watching on catch up. And it really encourages podcast hosts like me, like you, just to do something a little bit different. There's no money involved paying for guests. That's not what it's about. It's about spotlighting charities that we don't talk about enough. And I say, yes, I'm not trying to shine the spotlight away from the big organizations, but this was for me a beautiful opportunity to speak to you, which is always a pleasure, but to shine the spotlight on Windmills, because I couldn't believe when I found out more. This is two women doing amazing work.
Absolutely. And I'm with you. The big charities are so needed and need to be supported too. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But the smaller charities often get forgotten or missed, or people perhaps don't realise they need the help as much as the big charities, because the impact that a small charity can have, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute or two, but the impact that a small charity can have can actually feel at a personal level much more than the impact of the big charities. The big charities are doing the big things. That's why we need them. But the smaller charities are often much closer, much more personal. That's certainly my experience with Windmills anyway.
Yeah. Now, obviously, it's a very beautiful conversation that we had. It's a tragic conversation. And if you're happy to share with viewers, how did Windmills come into your life and your family's life?
Yeah, well, Windmills came into our life back in May 2023, and I always say they're the people that I never wish I'd had to meet, but I'm so glad we met them in the moment that we did actually meet them. So my eldest daughter, who at the time was 31, got diagnosed with secondary liver cancer. It was a very out of the blue. There was nothing really that that sort of triggered as this warning. It was very out of the blue, and unfortunately it was very, very quick and very fast as well in terms of how quick it actually took her life. So it was just under 6 weeks from diagnosis to the day that we lost Becky, which still in my head is like but Windmills were invited. Becky had 2 children. She still has 2 children, 2 absolutely beautiful children, and because we were still going through working out exactly what was going on in Becky's body and in terms of what treatment plan they could put her on. They told us right early on that it was terminal, that it wasn't going to be something that they could fix, but hopefully it was something they could treat to elongate her life. So during that 6 weeks, Becky was going through all of this. We were just there to help and support. Was having all of the tests so they could try and work out what was going on so they could come up with the right treatment plan for her. And 6 weeks, you think that's a long time. Surely during that time they'd have got to that point. But actually 6 weeks is a very short time, a very, very short amount of time. And there was constantly stuff going on. Do we wish things could have been done quicker? Absolutely. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So during that time, Becky made the decision, and I agree with her decision, that was until she knew what was properly going on, she didn't want the children to know what was happening, because she wanted to be able to have that conversation with the children with some answers for them, rather than we just don't know. We just don't know.
As a mum, she was preempting questions, wasn't she? She knew that her two were going to be like, "Mummy, what is that?" Yeah.
what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And we didn't have the answers. We just literally didn't have the answers. And we were being positive. We were in the frame that, they've said this is treatable. Yes, you're going to have to probably go through some nasty treatment, but it's going to be worth it because, potentially you could be here for years and years and years and years, because people absolutely are. So that was the decision that was made. Becky unfortunately took a downward spiral very, very quickly. It would have been on the Friday/Saturday evening. She became very poorly. She was due to go in on the Monday for a little bit of surgery, which was going to help with the symptoms that she was having. But she got admitted into hospital in the end because she was so poorly. And this was on the Sunday. And at that point, it became clear to us via the doctors that she was at the end. She was at that point where there wasn't a great lot else they could do for her body. It was shutting down. Her organs were closing down. They were trying to treat some of the symptoms, but by doing that, it was causing other potential problems. So we were then hit with the dilemma: the children. That they don't know. They know mummy's poorly because that was obvious in a way, but they've got absolutely no idea of what this actually means. And somebody in the hospital, one of the nurses in the hospital, came over to us and said, "We know this charity, the two nurses that used to work here in the hospital, so we know them personally. They're called Windmills, and what they do is support children, young people, through grief to help make that process less," I'm not going to say upsetting, because upsetting is the wrong word, but to make it easier, to help turn the grief around. That's their slogan.
Yeah, I love that.
And our initial reaction was, no, we don't want strangers to come in and have a conversation with the children and tell them the worst news that you ever want to expose. But something, don't ask me what, whatever it is out there, said, you need to do this. You need to let these people come in and help. So we did. We absolutely did. We invited them in. Within an hour, they were on the ward with us. Didn't know us, had never met us before, knew nothing about any of us other than what they'd been told by the nurses who'd rang. And they helped and supported through that conversation. And some of the things they said shocked me. And we sort of I want to have this conversation with Leanne and Zara now, and they'll say they'll never forget the look on my face when they just said bluntly, "Mummy is going to die." That was the exact phrase that they came out with. That they looked at me and they thought, she's about to jump over the bed and attack us or do something, because I was just so shocked that it was said so bluntly. Now I understand it. Now I've worked with them and I've spoken to them. I understand why they did what they did.
It's that innate need as you were grandma, to protect, isn't it? And
absolutely. I just wanted to say they don't need to hear that, but they needed to hear that. Yeah.
So we're so used to trying to cover up the horrific things that are going on, and then that leads down the mummy's going to sleep route and things like that, which can have so many bad connotations as well, can't they?
That's it. And I think one of the things that I've really learned from Windmills is that children want the truth. The truth is really hard to say because sometimes we're in denial. We're not accepting it. We are there as the grown-ups in this relationship to protect them and keep them safe. And our belief is that if we make it sound like something nicer, that it will feel better for them. Whereas actually, this is from their years and years of experience. They know that if we tell children things like, mummy's going to sleep, well, that means mummy could wake up.
Yeah.
And we would never think of that as adults. That would never have entered our heads. We'd have been, mummy's going to sleep, but this time mummy isn't going to wake up. Well, what happens when daddy goes to sleep or granddad goes to sleep or one of the friends go to sleep? Are they going to wake up? So there has to be this separation between death, loss, and sleep. And they've gone to heaven. You know, can I go and play with mummy in heaven? All of these things. And I'm not saying any of those things are wrong. I absolutely know we would have gone down that route. But now we understand that how important that was. And that continued throughout, you know, after we lost Becky, through all the preparation for the funeral. You know, Windmills asked us if we thought about the children going to see Becky in the funeral home. And again, our gut reaction was like, oh gosh, no, you know, that we don't want to expose them to that. Yeah. But again, as a family, we sat and thought about it. And we thought, well, who are we actually to make that decision for the children? You know, as long as they understand and they know exactly what's going to happen, then that has to be a question that the children get to answer, get to make that decision on. You know, and I feel like I'm talking a lot here, but during the process, what they did as a charity with the children was they made the experience feel less scary, less out of control. And they turned it into what I can only describe as having fun. So when we sat in that hospital ward, knowing what was happening, Becky was still awake at this point and talking. She was very tired, but she was still awake and talking to us. They did handprints. They did, you know, they've just got a magic, as it's like a Mary Poppins bag, out comes things. They got little teddy bears that they put little love hearts. So they all kissed the little love hearts and put them inside the teddy bears and exchanged them. So all of these little things that are the memories that the children have got, that are good memories, things that we would never have had if we'd have just done it ourselves. And that continues.
Like we say in our audio episode, there are so many things that what's easy to forget in our conversation now is you're talking about your grandchildren. You were going through this as well as a mum with your husband and with Becky's husband. And there are so many things that you just wouldn't have occurred to you because this was the first time you'd navigated this horrific, and I keep using that word, but that's the word that's just in my mind, situation. So for them to actually not tell you this is what you need to be doing, but to say, you know, would you consider doing this? It's just opening up opportunities that you say now with that wonderful hindsight. It's thank goodness you were aware, because so many of the people watching this will know someone who's been in this situation. And obviously Windmills is based in Stoke. So geographically, realistically, there's only a certain area they can cover.
Yeah, but they cover the whole of Staffordshire at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fine. But that is amazing for two women. That's amazing. But two things. Firstly, you were struck by the fact that your grandchildren are in a small school and they were working with other children in that school. So it's not that unusual, this awful situation that, you know, the work they do. But also that there will be other charities around the UK, around the globe, because obviously Podcasthon is a global initiative. It's just realizing that this kind of help is out there. And I think that's the thing. If someone hadn't said to you, Emma, did you know about Windmills? You wouldn't have been any the wiser.
No. And you know, for us, because we were obviously in the hospital and the nurses knew Leanne and Zara, they had worked with them previously because they're nurses. That is how we got to know about them as a charity. It's not something that we would have ever Googled, or certainly not in the time we had. Now Windmills help people when they have a terminal diagnosis as well. So if we'd have known about them, you know, it would have never worked for us in terms of what we had time-wise. But for people who do have that little bit more time, you know, they can bring Windmills in to help them understand the process, the treatments, all of this sort of stuff. Because for children, it is daunting, and they're little, they're trying to live normal life, and actually children just want to play. They just want to do the things that are normal for them. But also they're going to have all of these questions and things that they need to understand. And if they ask somebody, as you said, I was going through that as a mum. Her husband was going through it as a husband as well as a dad. Some of those questions at the time, I don't know how we'd have answered them because we were obviously navigating what we were navigating and just trying to protect everybody else that was around, that was younger or smaller or you know, more out of more out of their comfort zone, but I don't know what the right words to use are. But they were there to answer those questions. And actually the children sometimes might not have asked us the questions because they know that we were hurting too. So they would be like, oh, I don't want to upset daddy, or I don't want to upset nanny. So they got somebody that they could just go and ask those questions. Those questions that we would probably never have thought that was going through the heads, because the questions they have are so different than ours. One of the questions that my grandson had is, will we have a stone where we can go and see her? That was the last thing on our mind at that point. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It absolutely was. He just needed to understand some of the logistics of this, what this was. So to have them there to just deal with those little things that aren't little to the children, to us, it's the last thing on our minds at that point. It's unbelievable. And now when I sit and look, they've both got these little memory boxes.
I was going to say, how are they now? Because obviously we've just had Mother's Day in the UK.
They're doing amazingly. They've got these little memory boxes that have got all of these things in there that they've done throughout their time with Windmill. Like draw a picture that reminds you of mummy, and the little teddy bears are in there, and the handprints are in there, and they've got feet prints as well that they did in the funeral home. So all of these things they've got that they never would have had.
No. Oh, I think it's incredible. Right. Anyone that would like to connect with Windmills, obviously all the contact details are in the show notes. And obviously Emma's got her guest profile there as well. But I will say Windmills website is windmillscharity, all one word, .org. And if you'd like to find out more about Podcasthon, I can't say that word, that is podcasthon.org. I've loved this. It's such a powerful message that you're spreading, and I just, you're amazing.
It's just important for people to know that there is help out there beyond the big charities. There is smaller charities, and I know for a fact that Windmills are not the only charity. Certainly in the UK, I can't speak beyond the UK because I've never looked.
No,
but I'm sure there will.
I'm guessing, but
I'm sure they will be. But there is definitely more of these charities out there who are there to help and support the children, but they also help and support you by helping the children too.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love you for raising awareness, because this is an area of support. We mentioned at the beginning about the big names, and they do an amazing job, but it's the smaller interpersonal connections that become part of the family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But before you go, also there are going to be people going, I recognise Emma, or how do I connect with Emma? You've got so many things going on business-wise. You've just relaunched, is that the right word, your podcast? So please, before I let you go, talk me through what is going on, because there's a lot. There is a lot.
I can't keep up with myself this year.
No, I can't keep up with myself this year.
I think
me feel lazy.
A couple of years being quiet, that it's all sort of like starting to come. The last 2 years, nearly 3 years, are now all coming out in one. So I have just relaunched my podcast. So last week I had the 100th episode of my podcast was launched, and I just decided to give it's only a tiny little tweak and a change. So it's called the Simple Business Dream Life podcast, and my podcast is very much about building a business in the simplest way that you can, so it enables you to live the life that you want to live rather than consuming your life. And that's all based on my own personal experience. I've been there, built the business that consumed life. It's not fun. So I spend my time helping other people to build businesses, to grow businesses, but not in a way that it becomes overwhelming and takes over your life completely. So it's all about simplifying and keeping things as easy peasy as you can. So the podcast is out there. Do come and have a listen. In fact, Kate, have you been on my podcast yet?
I haven't, no.
Let's put this out here. We're going to make that happen. You need to come on and have that conversation with me.
Love it.
So the podcast is out there. I host an event, an event called the Growth Event. That is also getting a bit of an upgrade this year. So there's workshops and all sorts of fun things coming in.
Is that your end of year one?
That's my end of year one. So that's this year. That's happening on the 7th of December in the Birmingham area. So I'm super, super excited about that, because that, as I say, that's getting a little bit of an upgrade as well this year. But I am just experimenting with different ways to help and support people, because why I am helping other people do this, build the businesses that give them the lives that they want to live, I'm doing the same for me too, because that is important, isn't it? That is super important. Yeah. So if you want to find me, if you want to find me, super easy. I am Emma Hine on Instagram. My website is emmahine.co.uk, and everywhere else, it's just my name.
No, so that's what I love about you, because there are so many business experts, business growth specialists out there, but you are all about the conversations. And to me, it's all very well flinging techniques and strategies, but that's, you know, my coaching. It's all about having the conversations. It's all about asking, how are you feeling? How do you feel about life, your business, everything? Because we just don't, especially us women in midlife, we just don't talk about it enough. We hide our expertise away. We dilute ourselves. We lose faith in our own abilities, especially if we are starting new businesses. So go and check out Emma's links. I say they're on the show notes. They're on her guest profile, and come and connect with me. I'd love your feedback on our lives, on our audio episodes. All my contact details are on the show notes and the Midlife Unlimited podcast website, where you can also find details of how to work with me one-to-one, or come and join my all-in-one coaching program, More, because what else would it be called? I'm all about helping women get more by doing less, Emma. By doing less.
Absolutely love that.
So my two words of the year are more and less, because they go together. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining me today. It's a tough ask, and I really, really appreciate you. I really do. Thank you. And thank you for listening, watching this one. Don't forget, there's a new episode of Midlife Unlimited every Thursday, available wherever you get your podcasts. Here's to being fabulous and flourishing together and living Midlife Unlimited. Thanks, Emma. It's been brilliant.